If it's happening now, by George, we're gonna deal with it now, even if this room smells like chicken wings. Welcome. Tonight, Representative Cheney decides to invoke the 25th Amendment. Now, if you tune in to Give Me a Break Monday, we talked about the 25th Amendment and how it became, and how it would help out impeach the president. Because as you know, Trump's been impeached 2 times. First for the missiles, now for this. But there's something else you should know. Before that, the FBI was notified. Did I say Cheney? I mean Pence. I mean Representative Pence. The House voted to urging Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment. What that means is, if it happens tomorrow, which is today, Trump could very much be impeached. What does that mean? Here's the latest from CBS News.
House members on the verge tonight of casting an unprecedented vote, calling on Vice President Pence, quote, to declare what is obvious to a horrified nation, that the president is unable to successfully discharge the duties and powers of his office.
Can you imagine any other president in our history encouraging and fomenting mob violence?
In a virtual debate earlier today, Republicans didn't argue that the president is fit for office.
It was a horrific day.
Instead, they said Democrats are just kicking Mr. Trump on his way out the door.
You won the presidency. You have a controlling vote in the Senate. You have a majority in the House. Why continue this?
Traveling in Texas, President Trump said his vice president would never push him out.
The 25th Amendment is of zero risk to me, but will come back to haunt Joe Biden.
But he likely won't avoid being impeached for a second time tomorrow. And this time, a smattering of Republicans will vote yes, including the third-ranking Republican in the House, Liz Cheney of Wyoming, who said the president could have immediately and forcefully intervened to stop the violence. He did not. Many members tell us they are still shaken by last week's events. California's Norma Torres recounted a 27-second call with her son.
All I could say, sweetheart, I'm okay. I'm running for my life.
At least 3 of her Democratic colleagues have now tested positive for COVID after sheltering in a secure room last week with nearly a dozen House Republicans who refused to wear masks.
It's more than arrogance. It's more than contempt. It is, a desire to cause injury to others.
And so there is a new rule for tonight's vote. Any member who does not wear a mask on the House floor will be fined $500 for the first offense, $2,500 for the second offense, to be deducted directly from their pay, because this has been a problem, Nora, for nearly a year now.
That crackdown as the coronavirus spreads. Thank you, Nancy. Now let's take to the other big headline.
I mean, seriously, I'm going to tell you right now. I mean, Trump said the 25th Amendment will not have a invoked. I mean, it'll come back to haunt. It'll come back to haunt Joe Biden. Well, he's going to be the new president. How can he say that? Here's the latest again from CBS News.
Today, the president left the White House to fly to Texas to mark completion of just a small section of his border wall, but he could not escape his dwindling support among Republicans and even corporate America. Here's CBS's Ben Tracy.
Mr. President!
Defiant until the end,
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
President Trump now claims there was nothing wrong with what he said last week that incited the assault on the Capitol.
It's been analyzed, and people thought that what I said was totally appropriate.
That is obviously not true, given Democrats are set to impeach the president, and many members of his own party say he is at least partially responsible for what his supporters did after he told them this.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
President Trump is taking no responsibility.
Be careful what you wish for.
Instead, trying to tout his achievements with a visit to the border wall in Texas today. CBS News has learned that during a heated phone call with Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy Monday night, the president blamed the violence at the Capitol on Antifa. But McCarthy pushed back, telling the president it was his supporters, not Antifa.
We believe in the rule of law, not in violence or rioting.
The president is attempting to distance himself from what is now the defining event of his one-term presidency. He's dismissing an historic second impeachment the same way he did the first one just 13 months ago.
The impeachment hoax is a continuation of the greatest and most vicious witch hunt in the history of our country.
But the fallout is severe. His job approval now ties his all-time low of 33%. Deutsche Bank, his primary lender for decades, which he owes $300 million, is reportedly severing ties with him. And both Walmart and General Motors today suspended donations to Republicans who backed the president's call to vote against Biden's certification. Unlike when President Trump was impeached last year, CBS News has learned that the White House is not planning to mount any sort of significant defense this time around. The few White House aides that are left here are demoralized and simply trying to get through the next week. Nora.
Ben Tracy, thank you.
So what could that mean? Well, we now know the second impeachment. I mean, first impeachment was because of the missiles. Now we all know, and now we know it's because of the riots. He blamed something else. No. We blame Trump for this. And if you Trump supporters out there are in agreement, if you're in agreement with me saying, if you're butting people out there saying we blame Trump, then yes, blame Trump. But if you Trump supporters are saying, but if you back with Trump about this, you might as well walk down the aisle to hell. If you Trump, so again, if you Trump supporters agree that support Trump in this decision, well, you better tune in tomorrow night to see what's going to happen here, because it ain't going to be pretty. It's like a showdown in the final battles in the movies, if you just really think about it.
The acting U.S. Attorney for tonight, the acting U.S. Attorney for D.C. says the public will be shocked when it learns all the details from the assault on the Capitol.
But the FBI knows. Here's a little preview. Here's some links from CBS News.
Also shocking, new reporting that the FBI received a very specific warning before the riot. Let's bring in CBS's Jeff McGaze, who's been reporting all day. Good evening, Jeff.
Nora, that FBI notice warned of war at the Capitol, but for some reason, security wasn't stepped up there to meet the challenge that that attack would pose. A day before the insurrection, the FBI document highlighted an online thread discussing specific calls for violence to include be ready to fight. Congress needs to hear glass breaking, doors being kicked in, and blood from their BLM and Antifa slave soldiers being spilled, the memo said. Get violent. Go there ready for war. We get our president, or we die. Today, the FBI insisted that the warnings were taken seriously.
We briefed that within 40 minutes to our law enforcement partners, our federal, state law enforcement partners.
Today, a senator released a photograph of a man wanted in connection with an assault on an officer. 5 people died, including Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. So far, the FBI has opened about 160 investigations across the country, some of which could lead to charges of sedition or conspiracy.
We're looking at everything: money, travel records, looking at disposition, movement, communication records. So no resource related to the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office will be unchecked.
Just released on a $100,000 bond, the son of a Brooklyn judge. This image of Aaron Mostovsky went viral. In it, he's wearing a police officer's ballistic vest and clutching an officer's riot shield. There have been numerous arrests. Cleveland Meredith Jr. was arrested with an assault rifle, handgun, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and steroids. Also pictured in the crowd, Cleet Keller, a former U.S. Olympian who won swimming medals in 3 summer games. During the riot, he wore a team jacket with USA printed on the back. Today, members of Congress received briefings about what's to come before next week's inauguration. Some called it chilling. They were informed of potential plans for a lot to surround the White House, Capitol, and Supreme Court to block Democrats from taking control.
All law enforcement agencies involved are going to have to, step up their game and make sure that every potential threat is run down.
Fences are going up around Washington, reinforcing security. And CBS News has learned that law enforcement is following leads and working investigations in more than 30 states. A memo was sent today from the Joint Chiefs of Staff to all members of the military, reminding them that their mission is to support and defend the Constitution, and also confirming for them that their next commander-in-chief will be the 46th president, Joe Biden. Nora.
Jeff Begays, thank you.
I agree. And I support Joe Biden no matter what. I mean, if you want to make America great, he should have fucking resigned. I'm not talking about Biden, I'm talking about Trump. I mean, Trump wanted to make America great, he should have resigned. You want to make America great? Fucking resign. You think that's the answer? A big wall? You know, I'm not quoting George Lopez here, but I might have to. I mean, how do the Mexicans feel about the wall? We'll get over it. Like planes, the internet. They even used to have, back in the 1990s, a little hole that went from Nogales, Mexico to Nogales, Arizona. But years ago, before they sealed in that wall. And then the Mexicans was like, "Que no, pichi, dale elote." It's just a little timeline. And then the Mexicans, and then when that wall was built, the Mexican president, Mexico was like, "Que no, pichi, dale elote. No vamos a Vallarpos a piche mulo." And then he was like, "Great, we agree." So what's going to happen with Joe Biden now that he's president? Well, the biggest thing ever is going to happen. We don't know if he's going to get rid of that wall. Education, we don't know if it's going to happen or not, but something will come. More security is being tightened, and a lot of things are going to happen. We'll know. Coming up Wednesday, give me a break, a review of what we've done. Plus, COVID-19. Here's a little sneak preview. Now, before we go here, I told you about what's going to be coming up on tomorrow's going to be break, which is today. But I'm going to give you a preview. More COVID-19 happening. More COVID-19 drive-thrus. And Corpus Christi will host virtual MLK Movement Day event this year. That's all coming up on Wednesdays. Give me a break. And remember, if it's happening now, we're going to deal with it now. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.